bring your awareness, your presence, your full attention into this moment, right here, right now. And just allow the awareness to merge with your breath. If you notice yourself distracted by sounds or sensations, or the rise and fall fluctuations in the mind, don't worry. It's just the nature of nature. And just gently draw the awareness back to your breath. You can add a gentle mantra to it if you like, if you notice that the mind is still wandering. You can add the gentle mantra of so hum. It means I am that. I am that. I am the universe. I am the creator. I am the creation. I am all. So hum. Just very gently on the inhalations, you can allow yourself to chant silently to yourself. So as you inhale, and hum on the exhalations. If the mind wanders, just gently bring it back to the breath and back to the chanting of that foundational mantra. So I am the universe. I am one with all. I am that. Slowly and gently, bring the palms of your hands together at chest level. Gently rub the palms of your hands against each other. And press the palms into your closed eyes. Slowly lower the hands and open the eyes. Welcome to Satsang. So beautiful to be together. As usual, we will begin with a question that's come in advance from our family joining us from around the world. And then we'll take any questions that anyone here might have. What is the secret to a happy marriage? Sandeep Verma has asked that. So it's funny because my dad is actually a divorce attorney. So I grew up listening to stories about people getting divorced and listening to the things that they do to each other in the midst of a divorce. And I remember when Puja Swamiji and my dad met each other for the first time. And my dad was talking a bit about what he did, and Puja Swamiji asked him what his success rate was. And my dad said, 100% success rate. Everybody who comes to me, they get divorced. Swamiji looked confused and he said, but I have 100% success rate. He said, nobody who comes to me gets divorced. Everybody who comes to me stays married. So when you're a divorce attorney, 100% success means everyone who comes gets divorced. When you're a spiritual leader, 100% success rate is everyone who comes to you stays married. But there's one point that I've heard them both say. Different ways, different languages, but the exact same teachings. So it's the secret to a happy marriage coming from not only my dad, who's been happily married to my mom for many decades, but also from my guru, who, while never married and celibate his entire life and never having even lived in a home where people were married since he left his home at 8, but with that just divine awareness and intuition, the answers came pretty much to the same way. And The way my dad tells it is he says, you've only got one choice to make in a marriage. One choice. The choice is, do you want to be right or do you want to be married? It's your only decision. Would you like to be right or would you like to be married? Because you cannot be both. And if you're committed to being right, you're not going to be married. Or in India, where people don't get divorced so much, you at least won't be happily married. So you may stay together, but you're not going to be happy. When we make being right the main thing, then we give up being happy. We give up being peaceful. And Pujya Swamiji gives it in a simple mantra that I've heard him give at many, many weddings. He says the mantra to a happy marriage is, okay, honey. Okay, honey. So the same teaching. Okay, honey. It doesn't mean that you become a pushover. It doesn't mean you become a doormat. It doesn't mean that you completely abdicate any sort of sense of autonomy or agency or self. It doesn't mean that. But it means that you're actually very conscious and very strong. People make a very big mistake. You know, I was speaking in the Ganga Arati this evening about the importance of surrender. And a lot of people think that surrender is weak. That surrender is what you do when you have no other option. You're losing, and so you throw in the towel, right? I mean, we wave the white flag out. Okay, you're killing us. White flag, don't kill us anymore, we're done. That's how a lot of us associate surrender, as it's a sign of weakness, a sign that I'm losing, a sign that I have no other option. But surrender actually can also be a very, very powerful decision from a place of strength that says, I've got a choice here. And I'm going to choose to surrender. God's will are not aligned with God's will. But in our marriage, we have a choice that says, I can fight to get my way. I can fight to prove, I can fight to be right. But that which I lose in that fight is actually so much more valuable than whatever it was I was fighting for. I lose the love, I lose the peace, I lose the joy. I sleep on the couch, or I sleep alone in the bed while my spouse sleeps on the couch. I sleep on the couch, or I sleep alone in the bed while my spouse sleeps on the couch. My digestion's messed up, my sleep is messed up. Our home environment is messed up. And I lost all of that just to have Chinese food instead of Italian? Or to see this movie instead of that movie? Or to go home or go out? Stay home or go out? When you think about the things we fight over. And so I would say the secret to a happy marriage, from what I've gained from both the married divorce attorney and the celibate spiritual master, is be conscious about what you're choosing in every minute and every moment. Is whatever you're fighting for worth it? And there may be times when it is. I'm not saying there's nothing worth ever having an argument about, or a debate about, or a discussion about. There absolutely may be. But be sure that whatever it is you're fighting over is actually worth it. And wherever you can, choose love. Choose peace. Because whatever else you think you're getting, it's never as valuable as that love. So choose the love, choose the peace in every minute. And I think that should work well. There's a lot of other tips and secrets, but let's go on to another question for now. Any questions that anyone here has? Yes.
Hi, thank you.
Sure.
I have a question regarding surrender, and also from yesterday's satsang when you talked about convincing the mind. The question is more that there's the rational mind, but there's also the limbic emotional nervous system. Mm-hmm. And I think to do full surrender, I'm imagining it takes a lot of trust, right? And in order to get to that trust, it needs to overcome a lot of fear.
Yes.
And for me, for example, the fear is in the nervous system. It's not an intellectual thing. Intellectually, I 100% agree with what you're saying. But how do you sort of, I don't know if you have personal experience with this, but get over the fear in the nervous system?
Great. So she said, a lot of us have fear that keeps us from surrendering, that keeps us from trusting. And that fear isn't necessarily so rational. It's there in our limbic system, in a much more basic and early part of our brain, not the later developed cerebral cortex where we hopefully are somewhat more rational and evolved. Remember that even though we have different systems of the brain, and neurologically we've gotten really good at understanding more and more about them as the years have gone by. We can label them, we can say this is what this does, this is what that does. They're all talking to each other. If right now a gunman came through those doors, many things would happen simultaneously. Your heart rate would go way up, your heart would start to beat very, very fast in your chest. Your palms would get sweaty. All of the blood would rush from your internal system to your external extremities. It's what we call the fight or flight nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system. The rational brain would start to figure out what to do. Do I fight? Do I flee? Do I hide behind a speaker? Do I run inside? Do I pick up the fan and throw it at him? I mean, what do I do? There would be a sense of panic, an emotional experience of panic other than just the physical ramifications of a fast heartbeat or sweaty palms or flushed cheeks. You'd have an emotional response to it, a terror-based, fear-based response. Now, if you also happen to be sitting here with your mother, your father, your spouse, your child, you would also have the thought of, oh my God, my mom, dad, kid, husband, wife. You'd want to protect them as well. Lots of different systems of the brain are working. Some are happening automatically. Some are happening with more conscious involvement. Some of them have physiological ramifications, some of them don't. They've all happened in response to one thing, one gunman coming in here with his gun. And they all interact with each other. None of those things I've just mentioned is separate from the other. My heart is racing. The moment I realize my kid is here, my heart races more. Rational thought, sympathetic nervous system, automatic response. So I give you just that very, very basic example to underscore the point that It's actually one system. And it doesn't actually even end at the brain stem. It actually goes through the spinal cord. It goes into our bodies. As I was talking about the other night, we now even know that our gut is the second brain. So, I mean, there's actually ramifications happening everywhere. My adrenal glands sitting on my kidneys are releasing adrenaline. So it's happening all over this system. There is a response, meaning there's communication. They're not actually separate, but they interact with each other. One last example of this. We know from a lot of research that a meditative practice of mindfulness, actually has fantastic results in helping people overcome anxiety, fear, trauma. Things that have become deeply entrenched in this emotional brain, this limbic system brain. Things that otherwise are happening automatically without seemingly my conscious involvement. Practices of meditation actually have huge impacts on them. And they've shown all of this through great studies. Practices of yoga. Practices of just mindful breathing. It doesn't even have to be something with a religion per se. Deep abdominal breathing can counterbalance very, very quickly, like in a few seconds, an automatic sympathetic nervous system response. What we call the autonomic nervous system, that which is automatic, not under our control. But through my breath, I actually can control it. So, what all of this means is that actually you can overcome the fear. That the fear does not exist. That's what I've given you that whole foundation for. You can overcome that fear. It doesn't exist in some isolated, unreachable, untouchable, out of your control part of the brain over which there's nothing you can do. Everything you do, from the thoughts you think to the way you breathe, is impacting your limbic system, your emotional brain. I'll give you a personal example of this. Many of you know this story, but it's a worth repeating story. When I first met Pujya Swamiji, the first time I had an opportunity to actually speak to him, it wasn't the first time I met him, I take that back. I had met him a few times prior in his open darshans, but I never had had a chance to actually speak to him, to ask a question. But that day I did. And I asked him about fear. And he said, "You fear because you don't trust." And I gave him my story. Here's why I don't trust. Here's how I've been traumatized. Here's what's happened to my limbic system. I didn't use those words, but that was the meaning. Here's how I have been severely, irrevocably, I thought, impacted, affected, damaged by that which has happened to me, by the trauma I've been through. And this is why I have a fear response. This is why I don't trust. And he looked at me and he said, "Are you going to take that to the grave with you?" Just like that. Simple question. I was only 25. I said, "God, no, of course not." He said, "So how about your deathbed? Are you going to take that to your deathbed? You're going to give it up a week before you die, a month before you die?" He said, "You're waiting for someone to come in and draw the line and tell you you can be done." He said, "No one will. It's up to you. You can carry this pain, this anger, this lack of trust, this trauma to the grave, You can let it go on your deathbed a week before you die, a month before you die. Or you can let it go tonight. It's tonight? He said, yeah, tonight. After the Arati ceremony, I want you to go and stand in the Ganga. And I want you to give it all to her. All of the pain, all of the anger. And I will admit something which is very embarrassing to admit now, 27 years later. But in the spirit of total transparency, I thought, there's no way this is going to work. I was a psychology PhD student. Like, we don't give pain to rivers. There's a process. And I was in process. And the process takes a long time. And it's very intense. And it requires a lot of paid professionals. And I remember thinking later that day, thank God. Thank God I come from a world where we have all of these paid professionals who understand the process, so that I don't have to rely on a river to sweep away my pain. But I made a vow that I was going to do what he said sincerely. I knew it wouldn't work. But out of reverence for the fact that the being who gave me this instruction is one of the most revered spiritual masters in the world, that at least I would stop being disrespectful and mocking and, all of this in my mind that I had been that afternoon. Not of him, but of the idea that, a river actually could sweep away one's pain. That I was going to be sincere. I was going to be respectful. I was going to do what he had said. And I stood in that river. And I prayed and cried and prayed and cried and dug within me for every memory, every image, every thought, everything that filled me with pain, with fear, with anger, that sent me into my addiction, that sent me into depression, that sent me into all of that I was struggling with. And I called it all forth. I thought, all right, take it. And what I can tell you 27 years later is it worked. The first few months and even the first few years, I kept sort of waiting. There was a part of my overly indoctrinated brain that thought, it's not really gone, it's going to come back. But here I am 27 years later. Hasn't come back yet. She took it. And I share this with you because we're really indoctrinated by well-meaning, modern Western models of health and healing and psychology and neurology and all of this to believe exactly what you've just said. And to believe exactly what I thought. But it isn't really true. Now, that being said, your conscious brain can't simply turn to your limbic system and say, don't be afraid. Doesn't work, you're right. But that doesn't mean you don't have ways of communicating with it. What we know is that all of our practices, our meditation, our prayer, our ritual, working with the breath, all of these things actually are ways of connecting with that subconscious and unconscious parts of our mind that the conscious mind can't simply turn to and tell what to do. We also know the power of repetition, mantra, affirmation, truth. And of actually using the mind to free the mind. And the last piece that I would share with you about this is you, like I, fear because you don't trust. And I know from looking at you that the reason you don't trust is going to be a good reason. Like I had a good reason. We all have good reasons. And that you can let that go. That it doesn't actually have to define you for the rest of your life. And that you do have a power to change that. That whatever it is that has been done to you, that has happened to you, does not mean that the universe is not a safe place. It doesn't mean that the divine is not safe. It means that for whatever reason you needed to have that experience to learn what you needed to learn. And in my case, while I certainly never would wish upon someone what I had gone through, nor would I wish to experience it again, I'm really deeply grateful for it. Deeply. Because through having experienced all of that trauma, I've actually become who I am. Every other experience that I had came out of that. My ability to understand, to share, to teach, to give is rooted out of knowing those dark places. Of having been there. Knowing them very up close and personal. And it doesn't have to define you. And the universe is still a very safe place. You know, a beautiful practice is just to learn. Just imagine yourself doing a trust fall into the universe, like we do in school or team building retreats and corporate retreats where they have you kind of fall back into the arms of someone standing behind you, right? We do these trust falls and they put one person behind you. And so frequently the person standing behind you is a stranger or an enemy or the schoolyard bully. But we always drop back. We know that no matter how much of a bully that kid is, or no matter how much of an enemy or a competitor in the office that person is, or no matter how much of a stranger that person is, they're not going to let me crash into the floor. They're going to catch me when I fall back into their arms. And just practice your trust fall in the universe. Lie down in the grass. Just lie in the grass. Just put your arms in the grass. Does the earth hold you? Do you fall or are you supported? Do it in the ocean. Do it in a lake. Do it in a river. Are you supported? Are you held? Is the universe there for you? And then slowly, 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 just take steps of trust. Trust someone new every day. Depend on someone new every day in a new way. It doesn't mean people aren't going to let you down. They will. But that core fear will slowly, slowly, slowly dissipate. As you realize that you can put one foot in front of the other in the world and be held and be safe. And hold yourself. Every morning when you wake up and every night before you go to sleep, hold yourself. I gotcha. I gotcha. I'm here. I mean, why are you any less of a worthy person to depend on, to have faith in? Others have faith in you. Others trust you. I can tell from looking at you, you're a very trustworthy person. So give that to yourself. Tell yourself every day, I'm here, I gotcha. I gotcha. And then you're going to find yourself being able to slowly, slowly start to exhale. Surrender. And the last bit of this, from more of a kind of Gyan Yoga, a wisdom path, is ask yourself, what alternative do I have? I mean, if God really were prepared to change the universe based on whether we wanted it or didn't want it or surrendered or didn't, well, then it might be worth, all right, do I want to surrender? Do I not? My will, your will, I don't know. But God doesn't change God's will based on what we want. Summer doesn't not become winter because you were happy in a bikini. Nature moves according to the way nature moves. The universe moves according to the way the universe moves. People in the universe move according to the way their karmic packages and karmic journeys unfold. And sometimes on our path, we intersect with someone whose karmic package is unfolding in a way that, it's like sometimes you walk down the street and a bird poops on your face. And sometimes it happens in other more hurtful and deeper ways. But all of them have one thing in common, which is they're all just my karmic journey intersecting someone else's at a time in which the bird had to poop, and this person was responding to their world with anger, with violence, with fear, with confusion, with greed, with lust, with illusion, with ignorance, with ego, with whatever it was. It was an intersection at that time and space. And you clean it off, your face or your heart, depending on which the situation may be. And you move back out into the world. And it doesn't mean a bird's never going to poop on you again. But it means it's worth it if we get to walk in the sunshine. And in the same way, are you going to get hurt again? Probably. And it's worth it to be able to fully embody, embrace this experience of being spiritual beings in human bodies. Okay? Yeah. Other questions? Yes.
Respectfully, I ask you, so many religions in the world, how we believe God is one?
I'm sorry, say the beginning part.
I want to ask, so many religions in the world.
So many religions,
But how we believe God is one?
So many religions, and how do we believe that God is only one? So, take anyone. Let's take you. What is your name? I'm sorry? Naresh. Are you married? Okay. So you don't have children then. Let's take somebody else. Are you married? Yeah, you sitting next to him. No. Okay. I need someone who's married. All right, great. Thank you. What is your name? Summer. And Summer, what does your husband call you? Loverbug. There you go. Loverbug. Summer, do you have kids? Great. And what do your kids call you? Jom. Okay. Great. Now, her kids may at some point in their life also call her mom or mommy or mama. Her husband may, in addition to Loverbug, also sometimes say darling or honey or sweetheart or... What do your parents call you? Summer. When you were young, I imagine they called you darling. Darling, yes. Okay, now I've chosen Summer because I wanted lots of different relationships. One woman, one little nuclear family, a husband, kids, parents. So many different names, so many different relationships. And that's just her nuclear family. I haven't even started asking her about like what people at her work might call her, what her friends might call her, what her friends while she was growing up called her. I mean, we could do this for a long time, and we'd come up with lots of different relationships, lots of different names, lots of different ways of connecting. One woman. Now, religions are in a way different ways of having a relationship with the same God. Now, another way, another example. Your name is Naresh. So, let's say that I love you. Okay. Now, for me, the eyes are the most important. And so when I talk to my friends or my family about you, I'm going to say, oh, I love Naresh. He has the most beautiful eyes. And in his eyes, I see my soul. And if I were an artist, I would paint pictures of eyes. If I were a poet, I would write poems about eyes. Now, someone else loves you, but they're more of a hand person. They like to hold hands. So they tell their friends, oh, Naresh, she's got these great hands. They're soft, but they're strong. They're going to paint pictures of hands and write poems about hands. Someone else needs a shoulder to cry on. They're going through a hard time, and they love you. And they put their head on your shoulder, and they cry on your shoulder. And they tell everyone they know about what a beautiful shoulder you have, and it's so soft but firm and wide. And they're going to paint pictures of shoulders and write poems about shoulders. Now that's all great, because we all know each other. We love one man. He has eyes, he has shoulders, he has hands. The problem comes a few thousand years down the line, or hundreds of years down the line, when my descendants, my followers, think that Naresh is eyes. And somebody else's descendants think that Naresh is hands. And somebody else's followers think that Naresh is shoulders. And now we start killing each other. You see the absurdity of it. Now, he doesn't mind. I can love his eyes, somebody loves his hands, somebody loves his shoulders, somebody sits in his lap. I didn't ask Summer how many kids she has, but if she has 10 kids, let's say, I assume you don't, but let's say she did, And every one of them called her something different. And every one of them interacted with her in different ways. She's not going to love one more than the other. She loves them all. She understands these are all just all of my different children's ways of interacting with me. I'm mom. I can be everything to any of them. It's fine. You like to hang on my neck. You like to sit on my lap. You like to braid my hair. It's okay. It's all good. I'm mom. I can be that for everyone. So if one mom can do that, can't God do that? God is there. I mean, Krishna Bhagwan tells us in the Gita, however the devotee worships me, in whatever way the devotee worships me, I appear to the devotee in that form. Pick a name, pick a form, pick a way, no name, no form, doesn't matter. He says, I will appear to you in that way. Doesn't matter. God is infinite. An infinite number of ways to understand God, to connect with God, to call upon God. But if a mother doesn't even mind, why would God mind? But lastly, I'll tell you one other piece. We don't actually believe that there's just one God, like sitting somewhere, which cloud is God on? It's not that. We actually believe there's nothing but God, which is different than just one God. We believe there is nothing but God. You want to worship God in that tree? Go right ahead. You want to worship God in your grandmother? Go right ahead. Because there is nothing but God. And when you realize that, then there can be so many more religions. I mean, how many do we have? 5, 6, 7 major religions of the world? Theoretically, there could be an infinite number of them. Because God can be known in infinite ways. Okay? Beautiful. Have a beautiful rest of your evening. And a beautiful morning and day to our family joining from across the world. And so much love to all of you.